It is Monday, November 29th, 2001. And ladies and gentlemen, the award-winning Scene Magazine's best podcast, Mondays with Mazur, Tuesdays with Tony. I am Chad Zumock. I don't know if I'm the host, but I'm running the Zoom. And with me is Tony Mazur himself.
Yeah, you. By the way, you said 2001.
And 2021.
And I kept thinking, like, God, wouldn't it be nice to go back to 2001? Weren't we all like happier after 3,000 people were killed? Weren't we together as a nation?
I would love to go back to 9/11, 2001. That'd be fucking great.
Even though there were a lot of misnomers with that, but I kind of miss those days. What was I doing 20 years ago around this time? Probably going to school, listening to Howard Stern. Instead, Howard Stern's a cuck. And here I am with a captain's hat. And by the way, the bill broke off of this. So I'm going to upgrade and get a new captain's hat.
Oh! Holy shit. I got to get a new captain's hat now.
I look like a Monsignor in this, or I look like the father from Little Mermaid or something.
You actually look like the captain from the Love Boat. What was his name? He just passed.
Oh, Stubing.
Captain Stubing. Yeah, that's like his hat.
Gavin McLeod. Yeah, this is I went from the Bernie Coppell to the Gavin McLeod today.
Before we get into it, guys, first of all, thank you for signing up to our respected Patreons. But apparently Tony from Tex pulled an all-nighter. He hasn't slept from what I hear. What happened?
I slept a lot over the weekend, and the Browns were playing the Ravens, and we could talk about.
I've heard. Yeah.
We do a football podcast on Wednesdays. Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's called MLF. It was a spinoff of Misery Loves Company. And then Kevin Brennan and I got in an argument one day and he fucking ruined it. Go ahead.
I ended up, I'm like, I'll watch the Browns game and then I'll go to the gym in the morning. And so I did that. It's just, I didn't get any sleep. And then I come back home this morning and set my alarm. I'm like, all right, let's do it. And so I text you. I'm like, can we do 1:00? And completely just overslept my alarm. Apparently I had 12:45 was the alarm. Missed it. Hit a screenshot where, when you're just trying to like shut the alarm off and you're just get like an eye shade on. I screenshotted and it shut it off. So then next thing I know, it's about 1:25 and I get the notification from you, but on Instagram, I'm like, oh, that's not good. I'm not usually this tardy. I'm a radio guy. We're usually very prompt in this business.
No, it's all good, dude. I mean, you know what? Tony needs his sleep. He needs his sleep. He needs to get rested up. And I told you before that we started the podcast that, listen, I've always said with Kevin Brennan and myself, his beefs aren't my beefs. Your beefs aren't my beefs. My beefs aren't your beefs. We're all individuals. We all got our own beefs.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to share this with you and get your thoughts. I'm going to get into it. I woke up today and I noticed this because I was tagged in a tweet and I'm also blocked on Instagram.
Ooh, okay. So for folks just listening right there, it says you are blocked by Bert Kreischer.
The machine blocked me on Instagram and Twitter. I think I heard he was talking some shit. So I reached out and I go, dude, what's up? I go, are you even a real comic at this point? And that was the response that I got. So he was pretty sensitive to the message.
Could it have been a mistake? Because I just saw fairly recent when we just hit record, Jack Dorsey's resigning from Twitter. Because, certain things on Twitter might be glitches.
Oh.
It might be something that can, maybe it happened by accident. There's some things that happen in the ethosphere in Twitter and that we just don't realize it. So, could that have been a mistake, Chad, that Bert blocked you?
See, I was thinking maybe it was a mistake, but then he blocked me on Instagram too. So, well,
sometimes they work in cahoots sometimes. So, look, could it be just an absolute coincidence?
He unfollowed me when we got in a fight when I was living in Los Angeles. And then he just blocked me completely after I sent him that message. At this point, listen, I realize comics are a lot of comics for the most part are fucking assholes and they just use to get ahead. I obviously have nothing to offer Bert. There's nothing I can give. I don't have a radio show. I don't have a podcast that can up his platform. In my opinion, and I swear to God, and I mean this, he has done very well as a marketing machine. He's a very good marketer. This guy can market the shit out of himself. You know, he's got himself Netflix specials. He's got a Netflix series. He's got a movie. And I commend that. Good for you. I don't have that in me. I don't have what he has. He is built for Los Angeles, the Hollywood scene. He is built for that. I mean, he really is the machine when it comes to Hollywood. I don't have the level of phoniness and the level of energy that you have to go to those places. And that's just my personal opinion. And I'm just saying this. And I will speak amongst a lot of comedians. I know comedians talk shit. I know they talk about behind each other's back. Bert's not a great comic. He's just not. I'm saying it right now. He's not a good comic. Is he a great marketer? Is he, he has tons of gimmicks, the shirt, the machine, all of it. And it worked. It worked. He's a multi-million-dollar comedian. I just don't understand. Like, I've known this guy for 15 years. Like, really? That's how shallow you are? You have to block me because I have nothing to offer you?
Now, what was it that you said to him that set him off? Or are you at will to discuss?
Well, it started with the Patton Oswalt Twitter feud because I was on All Things Comedy, and he's a part of the board of directors.
So he's up there with Bill Burr and all of them.
Yeah, so I put him in a bad position there. And then the shit with the Chelsea stuff, people start contacting Bert because I was doing shows with him. And then him calling me, bitching about doing morning radio in Cleveland and who's this Rover guy. And then he goes on Rover and it's a fucking love fest because, he's great morning radio guy. He's energy, he's drinking. And obviously I had my beef with Rover and them. They start talking shit about me to him. And then he realizes like, okay, this guy's no good for me or my career. Mostly that's where it all started.
So like you said, he's great for morning radio. He tells a lot of stories, whether they're
a lot of stories coming out of Bert.
The whole thing is with someone like Bert, and I see this as somebody who's I've been in radio now for, almost 15 years coming up this month. But I've been doing stand-up for close to 8.
Right.
And I realize that there are certain comics that you really enjoy because to have as guests, and just guests in general, they don't have to be comics.
Right.
That you enjoy because they're good on the radio. And, I've booked my share of dud comics that whether they've come through the Funny Stop or on podcasts or anything, and that they just don't provide anything. Like, I had this one comic on that talked about, he was, when we were messaging, he said that he used to sell hot dogs at Old Cleveland Stadium.
Oh yeah. I've heard that story.
But then there are other comics like a Bert Kreischer that when he's there.
By the way, that was the story. It wasn't a setup. You just told.
Yeah, that was the story. Yeah.
That wasn't the setup for a story. That was the story.
And that's what I'm hoping, that there's going to be a big payoff that, him and Joe Carter, used to kind of get together, and maybe they, you throw him a baseball or something, the way like Mean Joe Green did with the Coca-Cola.
Yeah. Joey Bell told him to fuck off while he was selling hot dogs,
he threw a baseball bat at him in the upper deck.
Alex Cole mooned him.
Was Corey Snyder there? Did he give any mustache clippings? But then you have other comics like a Bert where you invite him into the studio and they're bad out of hell. Like, I mean, they're just coming up there and you're like, we can just sit back and we don't even have to do anything. So radio people love when you have somebody who's like that, and vice versa. When you're a comic, you like going into a place that they allow you to kind of be open, be freewheeling, stay for a couple of segments because it's good for your brand. It's good for selling tickets. It's good for the club. Then it reports back to the club. People call up and go, hey, I heard Chad on this morning on the radio. God, he was really funny. So I was wondering if I can get a table of 6. And and then it has that cross promotion.
Right.
When you realize that some comics are just an absolute machine, that they're not the organic comic anymore, that you send a text message or a Twitter DM and say, hey man, I know you're coming through town, and any chance you could be here about 7:30 on Thursday to promote the weekend shows. It's more than that. So somebody like Bert, that I've seen Bert, and I'll give you an example. I saw Bert live at the old Cleveland Improv.
Yeah.
Because he was on your show.
Yep.
And he at the time he was doing Bert the Conqueror, which was on Travel Channel.
Right.
When I was big into watching all those Travel Channel shows like Man versus Food and everything. And and Bert was great on the air with you guys. And I'm like, hey, this guy's fun. You know, I'll go see him. And
he sold a ticket. It worked.
That's what happened. And that's what it is. That's a business. And you don't have to be best friends with people in a relationship like that. It has to be kind of that understanding of somebody that, hey, this person's going to help me sell tickets as a comic, and as a radio guy, hey, this person's going to get me listeners, and it's going to be a fun hang in the morning. It's like a business relationship, but that's not what it was at the beginning with you and him, and it faded over time. It's almost like a marriage. It's almost like a marriage or a relationship that just kind of fizzled out, and all you did was talk about work as opposed to why you ended up getting together. And
I actually thought we were friends. I've known him for a long time, and I remember being in a car with him, Ben Glebe, Nick Thune coming back from the Irvine Improv, and Nick Thune was blowing the fuck up at the time. I mean, this was back in 2006, 2007. It was like a comedy juice show. But I remember being in the lobby of the Hollywood Improv with him and Daniel Tosh, because I used to open for Tosh, and talk like, so I've known Bert for a while. So I just assumed we were friends, but the fact that he has like no respect, and like the fact that he's showing his true colors, like I have nothing to offer him. Like, it's not like it's just some dude I met. Like, I've worked with you, dude. You were going to take me to Australia. I had to pay my way, which was a fucking joke. But I just find it's hilarious. It's just hilarious how like it doesn't matter how much money you make or how much success, you're still thin skinned, and this shouldn't even be a thing. And I just had to call it out because I just think it's embarrassing for him. It's embarrassing. It's just completely embarrassing. And I just want to put it out there because first of all, I don't give a fuck. I'm living in his hometown, Tampa, where he's from, you know? So I'm in his own backyard. He's never reached out. He's never tried to see how I was doing. He's just a fucking phony. He's a user. And I'm sorry, his act is dog shit.
Now, let me ask you this in fairness to not Bert, but other people that you've met, whether they're on their way up, they're coming down, they're at the big level, that you have met guys, like you said, you know, working with Tosh, and not only working with Tosh, working when he was extremely hot, and that he could have been touring all over the place, but he got the good gig at Comedy Central. That there are some people that they are cool. And even if they are selling out arenas or selling out major theaters, that you can still text them and they're still down to earth.
Well, Tosh wasn't that guy.
Well, no, I'm using an example of somebody of that stature.
Daniel, to his credit, I hear success made him more likable, and I heard he got more humble and better. Like coming up, he was kind of a dick, but I heard like now that he's living in Malibu, multimillionaire, married kid, like he's cool. I heard he's like really just down to earth. So
is he finally getting plugs or what?
No, he admitted that. He said he spent like $15,000 to have his fucking hair fixed. So that's not even like a hidden thing. He actually did it on Comedy Central talking about it. So much credit to him. No, but it just goes to show you like how just shallow these dudes are. And it's just like, you're selling snake oil. Like, I'm a comic for real, dude. I live the life. I'm not a marketing. I'm not a brand. I'm not the party machine. I'm a fucking idiot. Okay. I make mistakes. I do stupid shit. I get drunk. I get charged with DUIs. I get drunk. I shoplift. I do stupid shit. And I live the life, and I talk about it on stage, but it's coming from a real place. It is coming from a broken home. It's coming from my mom, single mom, my dad leaving me before I was born, my abusive stepfather. That's where the comedy's coming from, the pain. It's not about being famous for me. I don't like fame. Fuck fame. I don't like famous people. As I get older, I realize how much bullshit it is and how much nonsense it is. So I become more underground, more punk with this as I get older. And a guy like Bert, that's all he cares about is fame.
It's public relations too, because if you think about it, he's one of the hardest working comics if you look at it from just that angle. Not just funny, but when you talk about what goes into it and building the brand of Bert Kreischer. And
he's got a team around him, like his sisters, his wife. So they're like he's with Levity, he's got Judy, he's got Reg, and all. I don't even know Reg was there anymore, but he has a lot of people helping this because a lot of people are making money off of it, which I can understand. But I'm real though. Like I'll tell you, here's this. I'm sorry to hijack your show here, Tony.
No, you're good.
we did a football podcast with Doug Stanhope. You could watch it. You go look it up on YouTube. There's over like 40,000 views. And he tells a story about how Jay Moore bitch slapped Bert twice. And we called Bert on air. You can look this up. This is not even made up. Bert's own words said, yeah. He goes, I just took it. I just thought that's how Hollywood work. I'm going to tell you right now, if Jay Moore bitch slaps me, I'm going to fuck him up. I'm going to fuck him up right then and there. But that's how bad Bert, whether, I don't know what his reasonings were. Like maybe he had to provide for his family or just wanted to be famous. That's where we differ. So I think me standing up to Bert, he doesn't like that because he thinks in his mind, that's not how it goes. Like, you're supposed to kiss my ass. I'm supposed to bitch slap you and you're supposed to take it. Well, I don't want what you want. Okay. I don't care about fame. I don't give a fuck, Bert. Rack me.
There's a difference in paying dues that especially if you're a young comic and you're working, I'm at that level where but I'm also not going to kiss ass. If I'm kissing your ass, it's not what you think it is. It's me praising you for doing a great job as a comic. That, how many times have I worked with someone like, for example, Dave Landau? I use Dave as a perfect example. Dave is selling out everywhere he goes because he's on Crowder. But it wasn't just because, he has a work ethic, but he's also extremely funny. So he earned a lot of it on
and likable and also reliable. Unlike like Bert in this industry, I consider Dave a friend. I came up with Dave to this day. I just worked with him a month ago at Miami. He fucking tipped me out $300. He's like, dude, you did great this weekend. And that's a good dude, man. And he answers every text. Doesn't let any of this get to his head. That's a reliable dude.
Dave is at a level where he can look at the Little Rocks and he can look at the, Iowas and everything. We're just going, why would I want to do that? These podunk hayseed markets. No, he goes to all of them. And again, how many people are going to go see him that watched him on Crowder and said, oh my God, Dave's going to be like an hour away from us. Let's go. Let's buy tickets. We're going to make a night of it. Let's get a hotel. And it's because he's a funny guy. And that's where the difference between when you have the work ethic, but where is the work ethic going? Are you building towards your comedy or are you building your brand? And for someone like Bert, and it's really, I don't want to say it's a criticism, but it's sad because you kind of saw this with Amy. You saw this with, in a way, Dane Cook, if you think about it. As much as Dane is a trailblazer, especially for essentially what we're doing right now, Dane was kind of one of those that he turned into truly a machine. That it wasn't just Dane Cook, it was Dane Cook, and there was his brother, and it was this and that.
And Bert followed the model of Dane. Like, you could totally tell that, okay, this is what I got to do. Okay, we're going to go that route. By the way, here's a great Norm Macdonald story. I forgot who told it, but I heard it. But Norm Macdonald, I guess, was on in Sirius XM or something, and Dane Cook was there. And they're like, yeah, we're going to have Dane Cook on the show. And he's like, oh, really? That guy's a genius. And he goes, really? He goes, yeah, computer genius.
It's like I praise the work ethic, but what it should come down to is, are you funny?
Man.
Are you a funny guy? And I'll say this in all honesty. When I saw Bert, he was really silly. Was it the greatest comedy show I ever saw? No. I think you were on the show, maybe Joe Howard. I'm not sure who else was on there. Maybe a Jim Tooze or a Kerry Callahan, who may or may not be a man now. But I don't remember who was a part of it.
One person got that reference.
Exactly. And it's you. You're the only person. But I get there, I go to the show. I was at the side of the stage, a great club, the low.
Oh, great. Old Cleveland Improv, phenomenal.
And basically, as soon as he gets on stage, Bert's taking his shirt off and he's doing a shot and everything. And it was a silly show. And I enjoyed it for what it was. But is this what you're working towards? Or is this, hey, this is a comedy show? I think it might have even been a Sunday. I think it was a Sunday night. It was one of those 6 p.m. Sunday shows. And it was fun. It was a fun show, but I wouldn't put it up there in the pantheon of comedy shows I've ever seen. No,
I mean, with the internet emerging, I gave him credit. He's a marketing genius. He figured out the marketing aspect of this and propelled himself, made friends with the right people. I like to quote the great Chrissy Mayer, socially climbed. He climbed socially to where he needed to be. And I don't roll like that, dude. Like, I'm real. If you're my friend, you're my fucking friend. I'm a ride or die motherfucker. I got your back through thick and thin. If there's something's going down, I'm going to be in your corner. Listen, because life's all about ups and downs. And to me, Bert comes off as an opportunist, and he sees me expendable. My problem was, and I talked to Florentine about this. My problem was I featured for a lot of these dudes, and in this insecure profession, they all see me as the middle guy now. But I don't have an ego about where I go in the lineup. I open for a ventriloquist this weekend. I don't give a fuck. I'll headline, I'll close that bitch, I'll middle that bitch, and I'll host it better than anybody. So, but the problem is there's so much insecurity in comedy that a lot of these big time headliners, they think, oh, I'm just an opener, I'm a middle. And I think in Bert's mind, I'm just his middle or opener, and I'm beneath him. I'm a piece of shit. So,
and you can't do anything for him.
I can't do a thing.
Like, what can Chad do for Bert Kreischer? And
nothing.
When you start looking at it, you look at your contacts and you say, well, nothing. Well, if that's the way you look at things, then that's a really shitty way of operating as a human being.
Yeah.
You're essentially a PR firm at that point where you say, okay, let's see. Well, Rover could get me, sell me a couple of extra tickets. And if I go on this show and
No, I mean, he used Rover to sell out the fucking Cavs arena, Rocket Mortgage Field. Mm-hmm. Like, literally. Oh, is that you and Bert?
That's me and Bert.
Is it that night?
Improv. That was that bar that was like right outside the showroom.
You both looked better.
Yeah, that was a nice fresh-faced boy with a Red Hot Chili Peppers shirt. And
did I talk to you that night?
Maybe, I'm not sure.
Did I big time you?
Yeah, I think you looked at me as an opener.
Because I was on the radio. You were beneath me.
But that's you see that in every facet of this business too, because you even see that on podcasting where somebody that you try to get them on the show and they look and go like, oh, how many listens do you get? What do you mean how many listens? I know you. Why can't you come on my show? That I can get decent guests, and then you'll have somebody who's a friend that tries to big time you. So it's if you start looking at things in the eyes of this person can sell me extra tickets or more listens to on my podcast, or you can say, hey, I'm doing this because I want to promote my special, whether you're doing a small time podcast or the Howard Stern show and anything in between. I mean, that's how a human being should look at it.
Here's the facts. I remember it was 2011. He was there, right? Was that when you went to the show?
2010.
We get an email from Lee Herlins asking if you guys would have. It came to me and I believe Rob, the old producer on Rover Show, or Doogie, or I don't remember, saying, "Will you guys have Bert Kreischer on? He's coming to the promote." And I knew Bert. I was like, "Yeah." So I told Alan, I go, "He's a friend of mine. He's cool. He's funny. He's great on the radio." So Alan, reluctantly said, "Yeah, we'll have him on." Rover passed on him that time. Passed on him. So we got him for one segment because Alan had to move on to Yahoo News after that. And Bert was killing. He was doing great. He's a fun radio guest. But I was the guy who got him on to help sell tickets. But it's quickly how you forget. You forget the little things as you move forward. But
it really is a what have you done for me lately? And when they look and go like, well, Chad's not on the radio anywhere, and I've already done his podcast, so it's okay. I'll go on Todd and Tyler. I'll go on Mike Calta. I'll go on Rover. I'll go on Man Cow. It's like, okay, well then you're not a friend. You were just using me for public relations. You were just using me to sell extra tickets. Is that really a friendship? It's kind of like what you were talking about with Joe Howard for all those years, that you kind of ignored the fact that you were friends with him and all this other stuff that was popping up. And then all of a sudden it hits you, like you sit back and go, wow, this guy just used me for everything.
Yeah.
Time. And what do we get? We get a frayed friendship that just turns into, oh, okay, well, I guess it was fun while that lasted.
Right. Yeah. And you eventually move on. And listen, I'm not married to the fucking guy. And to be honest with you, in all full disclosure, he's not really that fun to hang out with. I've been on the road with him. He's okay. He's very self-involved. If you talk about Bert, he's all in, but he's not the whole party animal thing and whatever. It's just kind of it's his thing. And again, he's doing well. Good. Go make that $1 million and hang out with Snoop Dogg. If that's the life you want, go get it, buddy. But I'm a real ass dude, and I don't care. I don't give a fuck. Go talk shit on me to Joe Rogan. I don't care. I could give a fuck. But I just want to.
And one of the people, there's so many people out there that are afraid that when they're on their way up, that's where they need to step on toes. That's where they always talk about who are the most fun people. And you would think the A-list comics, the A-list actors are going to be the biggest assholes. And you realize they're actually pretty humble because they had to get to a certain level. And when they achieved that, they're actually a lot nicer. It's the people on their way up that will step on toes and cut throats.
Sure.
And it sucks because it's not the same person. Again, you've known Bert for 15 years. You've been in the car with him. You've had road trips. You've talked after shows. You've laughed. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, okay, so this is what it is. I wanted to be a comic and tell jokes, and you wanted to be a superstar.
Celebrity. No, you know what's funny? This is the perfect analogy. When I found out all Bert's tricks and who he really was, it was almost like when I was a kid and I found out there was no Santa Claus. I didn't cry. I just felt disappointed. I'm like, are you serious? It was you, Mom? Oh.
Have you told that story before?
No.
The hotel?
Oh, no. Yeah, we did it. I told this. It's on the internet. About me and Sean O'Brien. We were opening for Bert in Detroit. We were going to Detroit to Liberty. And he texted us, come up to the hotel room. And he was screaming, livid at the top of his lungs at his agent. And the words, and Sean is my witness. You can look it up. He's just like, I did this. This was my success. All the success is because of me. I did this. You didn't do it. And then he opened up the door. He's like Jekyll and Hyde, like, hey guys, how's it going? Like he went from crazy maniac, which is comics are crazy. I'll give him that. But it was just like, when you see behind the curtain of Bert, it's not that good. There's not much there.
It's not as fun as you think. It's kind of like when you would listen to your favorite radio show growing up and you go like, oh, these guys seem awesome. Or like going to see, for example, I'll do a hyper local reference. It's going to see Dieter. And you think Dieter, who is a local radio guy who I don't know how still has a job after 20 years. And you think that he's the same guy in the radio as he is, off the radio, and that you're just going to just rip shots and just, find girls and everything. And then when you realize, oh, that's just an act for the radio. You're kind of just a boring guy who is married and, you go to the gym sometimes, and it was like that where whenever you hang out with your favorite radio personality and you realize, oh no, they're just duds. You would rather hang out with the radio salespeople because they're the ones who know where the cocaine is.
It was like Kitten in the Balloon.
Oh, yes. Yes, of course. Yeah, when you find out it's all a fraud.
What? They didn't put a cat in a balloon. Oh, what's going on? Anyways, I just wanted to get that because I just find it hilarious. Bert's probably he could probably retire right now. I mean, he's worth millions of dollars. I mean, it's out of control. But the fact that he's that petty at this, like in this point of his career, you want to be a little bit more humble and we have a history, but I guess it is what it is. I guess the point is people will disappoint you, especially comedians.
Well, here's what'll happen. Bert's what? He's close to 50 now, right?
Yeah.
So how long is this really going to last? Is Bert going to be like Jack Benny or George Burns in his 90s and selling out Carnegie Hall and performing there? Or is this riding this wave right now? And then eventually it's not going to be Bert Kreischer Day anymore. I mean, it's Patrice O'Neill talked about that on one of the great Opie and Anthony episodes. And by the way, passed away 10 years ago yesterday. And he talked about how he looks up every day at his ceiling fan. And he was just happy about it, where so many people wanted a Patrice O'Neill like character for their radio show, but they didn't want Patrice O'Neill. They wanted somebody like Patrice, but you're not going to get a like Patrice. It's kind of like you want Bill Hicks, but you're going to get Dennis Leary, where you just take all of Bill Hicks's easiest premises and, smoke and rant and rave, but you're not really getting the substance of who, Bill Hicks was. So there are certain comics where you're kind of looking at it and saying, how long are you going to keep this wave going to the point where you're going to have to come down? And you kind of thought with how everything got shut down in the last year, everybody had to kind of take a step backwards, where Rogan was doing arenas, then he had to do a smaller theater. And if you were doing smaller theaters, you're doing big comedy clubs. And if you did big comedy clubs, you're doing small comedy clubs. So everyone kind of took a step backwards. So eventually it's not going to be Bert Kreischer Day anymore, just like it wasn't going to be Dane Cook Day. Remember when Dane Cook was selling out everywhere? He still does, but it's not Dane Cook Day anymore. So eventually Bert's going to be one of those where he's going to come back to Side Splitters. And who knows, maybe in 10, 20 years, he's going to be, maybe even sooner than that, at a Funny Stop like place. And he's going to want me. He's going to contact me and say, hey man, I hear you're on the radio. I was wondering if I could come on the radio, and I'm going to be in Cuyahoga Falls coming up in a couple of weekends. Can you get me on? So it's like, oh, so now you're on your way down and now you got to make your apologies. That's the problem, is that when you're on your way up, you can step on toes all you want. But when you're on your way back down, like Amy Schumer is dealing with right now, you're going to have to make a couple of apologies to the people that you pissed off when you were on your way up.
By the way, to add on that analogy, I held on to this, by the way, until you were done.
Ooh.
You want Ace Frehley and Peter Criss, but you're getting Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer.
Ooh, I like that.
There you go.
I do like it. We always use Gary Cherone, even though I think Gary Cherone was the best lead singer of Van Halen had.
I'm gonna go back and listen to that Van Halen album with Gary Cherone. I haven't listened. I don't think I really listened to it.
He's a better singer. I don't know how well he fits the band. Because I thought Diamond Day, I can't stand David Lee Roth, and Sammy Hagar. I never thought the Van Hagar years were that good.
I thought you didn't like David Lee Roth during the heyday though, like 1984 and all that shit.
It was Bert Kreischer. It was over the top.
I found him hysterical
and lacked substance.
I remember I watched the Van Halen when Eddie Van Halen died. I was watching a lot of concerts and there was a concert and Diamond Dave came out and he's doing all his shit splits. And at one point, he's like, I forgot the fucking words. And he's just dancing. I was getting such a kick out of him.
He's doing the airwalk, and he's got like this big bottle of whiskey that he's just slugging on stage. I'm like, yeah, what?
He really was he really was the original machine.
Oh yeah, it's like, what apple orchard did you get that apple cider that you're slugging from that Jack Daniels bottle?
You're right.
So that's the problem, is that when you start to see these acts that have to do local clubs again, and because again, Bert is a close to 50-year-old man.
By the way, I texted Bert that when he was filming his Netflix special. That's where it kind of started, because I was in Cleveland and he pretended like he didn't have a guest list because he didn't want me there because I had too much heat on me, and he had Rover there and all that. He thought whatever his thoughts were, and I basically said, I go, dude, I know you have a guest list. I know the owner of the Agora, Chris, he told me there's a guest list. Whatever. It doesn't matter. I'll catch you on the way back down. That's what bothered him.
Oh, there it is.
He
doesn't want to be on the way back down. And he's so concerned. That's why Bert, his stories, as silly as those stories are that he tells, whether they're true or not, they're also pretty politically correct. Like he's not going to say anything where he's dropping N-bombs, even in jest, or even in just in the context of whatever it is, talking about Tracy Morgan or something. So Bert's he's watching his P's and Q's, because he's afraid that one complaint.
He's a Hollywood guy.
It's taken right off. And one complaint about something he says or does on stage, taken right off. So it's that Patrice thing where he's like, I look at my ceiling fan because one day I could say something or do something and they're going to take my ceiling fan.
I never want to be part of the machine. And when I watch how the sausage was made, I was like, I don't want no part of this. That's why I fizzled the fuck out in Hollywood. Did I fail? Absolutely. Because I can't do what Bert does. I don't have the phoniness in me. I wish I did, but to get to where he is, you got to be so fucking phony. You got to like bullshit. And I'm not built like that. I don't have it in me. And maybe it's stupid. Maybe I'm an idiot. But I'm happy. I'm happy with where things are. But I got 100 and some Patreons. I'm good.
See what happens when these YouTube stars or the TikTok stars end up getting booked at these one-nighters at comedy clubs, or they book them for a weekend. They're never brought back because they're really not that good. The audience will tell you, because Bert's now at the level, and Amy was at the level a couple of years ago, and Dane was at the level 15 years ago, where you're going because it's an event now. And that, I was in the car the other day and I had the Christmas station on, and it was an iHeart New Year's with Bert Kreischer in Philadelphia. And I'm going, boy, they really are marketing this guy.
What?
Yeah. It's
was he doing stand-up? Was he doing stand-up comedy, or was it a commercial?
No, it was a commercial for his, I think he's doing an hour on iHeart, on the iHeart stations or whatever. And you can, or like on iHeartRadio.com or the app. And that, and then, certain winners can get an opportunity to fly to Philadelphia to go see Bert perform.
Wait, he's doing an hour like show?
I think he is. Yeah. I could be wrong, but that's what I heard on the radio. And I'm just scratching my head going like, God, I saw this guy at the old Improv. And he seemed like a cool guy, a fun hang. I never would have thought this guy would be at the top level and selling out theaters. Just again,
marketing.
do you get funnier over time? That's the one thing that's interesting. It comes down to, are you funny? Bert is an amusing guy. I'm not gonna lie. You know, when I first favorite comic of all time.
Before I saw Behind the Curtain of Oz, I was attracted to all the bells and whistles too. Like I was drawn to Bert and all the gimmicks and the bullshit. But when I saw the Oz, I'm like, okay, well, there's nothing there for me. And all the trickery, the laughing at your own jokes on stage, like it's almost like the Dave Chappelle knee slap. It's accelerate. I know all the tricks, and I'm not impressed. And when I watch Bill Burr do a show, he's doing stand up hardcore.
I remembered, God, it had to have been about 4, maybe 5 years ago. And I've brought the story up before, but I'll tell it again. He was on your podcast, and I don't know if you were at Zany's in Nashville doing it after a show. And I thought it was extremely rude of him. And if you go back in the archives for anybody listening, to go check out the Sit Down Zumock podcast, where Bert was basically eating the entire time. I mean, who do you think you are, Mike Trevisano? That again, 3 people get the.
By the way, damn you! We just lost him.
Yes, God bless him and Michael Stanley and Les Levine.
As a former coworker of mine, you piece of shit.
That's right. Hey, my connection is I called in twice to his show one time, but I just remember it was like after a show and you guys were doing it, and he was distracted. He was probably looking at his phone, I would assume, and he was eating the whole time. And I'm like, Bert, you've been on thousands of podcasts at this point. You've been on thousands of radio shows. At least, I don't know, hold off on the food for a couple of minutes while you're trying to do a podcast. No one's saying you're going to do a 3-hour Rogan type podcast, but just hold off. And I just hear the crunching of whatever he's eating. And I thought it was extremely rude for somebody I'm not sitting there where if you and I are doing this podcast, then I'm not like, oh, hey, look, I've got this feast. And, you're asking me, hey, what do you think about Bert? What do you think about this? And I'm like, well, I was raised in Florida. It was really rude, and it rubbed me the wrong way. And it's one of those spider sense things where you feel that, hey, wait a second. Whoa. It was one of those like, could it just be me?
He probably thought he was just doing me. He thought he was doing me a favor, and he was just don't want to. And that's so he didn't put any effort into it. But here's hanging out with Bert, guys. If you guys want to hang out with Bert, it's like this. This is Bert. I'm Bert. Hey, everybody, the machine's coming on tour. And you're just sitting there watching him talking to his phone. So it looks like there's a party going on, but there's nothing going on. It's as soon as he uploads it, it's like back to quiet.
Yeah, they make it seem like it's this big whole free for all, and it's just a drunk fest. No, what it is it's a drunk fest for the fans. So they get all liquored up. They go to a show and they do shots and they drink a bunch of beer. And it's in a way, it's kind of channeling the Dice thing from 30 years ago to what Dave Attell was doing 20 years ago. And clearly the one thing is that Bert is he's very influenced by a lot of those guys, and a lot of those stories that were being told were. By
the way, I didn't realize the podcast was just going to be about Bert. It just kind of organically happened that way. I wanted to tell my quick story, but listen, it's an interesting subject to analyze, considering in my profession, he's considered one of the more successful comics working.
I was going to say, do we have any other people that we want to rip on, name drop?
I might put this out for free. Are you cool with it?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, cool. And by the way, the opinions of Chad Zumocks are Chad Zumocks. The opinions of Tony Mazurs are Tony Mazurs. We just happen to do a podcast together.
I'll say this. The last thing I'll say
every Monday
with certain comics, because it's fun
on Patreon behind the paywall. You cheap fucks.
That's
Go
right.
sign up.
Patreon.com/Tony Mazur. You can find my podcast. I put one out this week where I wrapped up the weekend. I've gotten a bunch of people enjoying my weekend in review on Monday mornings. That I'm going to keep doing those. So I'm glad you folks are enjoying that. The one thing that I'll wrap up is it was interesting being at the comedy club, and you and I were both there about 2 years ago when Carlos Mencia came by.
Sure.
And, Mencia had his issues, obviously, with Rogan. But what's interesting about Mencia, and obviously it was brought up during the Pete Davidson terrible Joe Rogan impression a couple of weeks ago on SNL.
Swinging a miss.
Most people don't know about Carlos Mencia and the joke stealing and what went into it. And I'll say this about Carlos is Carlos does long shows. And it's in a way very manic, the way Robin Williams would do it. And there are a lot of stories about how Robin Williams would hear a joke from someone like Bobby Slayton before the show. He'd be like, "Oh, that's really good." And then 10 minutes later, he's on stage doing the joke that Bobby Slayton just told. And in his mind, he didn't realize that that wasn't his joke. Yeah. So sometimes there is a little bit of a plausible deniability. Other times it is just blatant theft.
Dude, and let me put this out there right now, just because I haven't spoken about it publicly, and I don't mean to interrupt your story.
No, go ahead.
There was a bit, and it's called self-correcting and being honest. I was never called out about it. No one's ever said this is so-and-so. I found it out on my own that I subconsciously lifted a joke, and I no longer do, about hanging up house phones. You ever hear me do that? Like you used to have a house phone.
And then you do how do you hang a cell phone up?
Yeah. And that, by the way, that part was mine. I came up with that one. But I saw Steve Byrne do that years ago because there was a clip online I watched recently, and I go, holy fuck, I lifted that without even knowing. I must have subconsciously saw it, or I must have been drunk, or whatever the case may be. So I am putting that out in the world and if Steve ever saw it, I don't think he did, he would have said something, but I'm just saying I accidentally lifted a premise, and it's not that great of a joke.
No.
I didn't do it all the time, and it wasn't on like a special or anything like that.
But it's a good transition. Like I did one, and I actually texted Florentine about this because I didn't know it. One of my jokes sounds like a Florentine joke and I had to make sure. I'm like, did I hear him say this on a podcast or on stage or whatever? And I texted him. He said, I don't do a joke like that, so go ahead. But it felt like a Florentine joke.
Yeah.
And the one joke I did was about being on a dating app. And how there was a girl who I saw, and there was a true story that said she was sassy, classy, and a little badassy. And I said, yeah, I'm going to swipe left on that. The only way I would appreciate somebody having alliteration in their bio is if you said your name was Cassandra and you said, my name is Cassie, and I take it in the assy. You know, it's a stupid throwaway joke. Yeah. And I'm like, but that could sound like a Florentine a podcast joke, and everybody's awful joke. And I had to text him. I said, do you do something like this? He's like, no, but no, go ahead. You know, and he's like, maybe I could have had a similar premise on a podcast, but go for it. So I had to make sure, and I don't want to be one of those guys who does that, but there are certain comics that are very manic that they hear something funny and they think it came from them. And Mencia is one of those guys that he does 3-hour shows. And not only does he do 3-hour shows, it doesn't matter how many people are in the audience, he'll still do 3 hours. And when you and I saw him at the Funny Stop a couple of years ago, there was 5 people in that audience, and he still did 3 hours. Like you and I could have done 3 podcasts.
Listen,
he's still on stage.
Is Carlos's stand-up my cup of tea? No, but he's undeniably entertaining and funny on stage. People like him. I get it. Most
people have no idea about joke stealing or anything like that. So I saw him at I saw him at an improv one time, and he sold out this place, and people are slapping tables and falling over. And I'm looking at the stage going, what is funny? He just put the microphone down his throat and is deep throating. And what is going on? But that's what it comes down to. So somebody like Carlos, who's kind of on his way down now, was very humble. He was a cool hang. I mean, you talked about the time of going out drinking with him.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, me and Gino fucking ran up his tab like a motherfucker. Very generous. He told us, he's like, whatever you need, put it on my tab. And we're like, the worst thing you could ever say.
Yeah, it's for you and Gino.
We were buying drinks for women. It was the best.
And I got to say, it was interesting because seeing somebody at that level who at one point had his own TV show just after Chappelle and was considered an A-list comic. He was a top drawing comic. And to have him in my home comedy club performing on a Thursday night in front of 5 people and still doing 3 hours was interesting. And talking to him between the shows, he's coming up to us. He came up to me, gave me a big hug after I got off stage. He's like, man, that's some ballsy shit, man. That's fucking funny. That's ballsy. And I'm like, this Carlos Mencia is saying this. And it was a cool experience. So when somebody like a Bert and somebody like an Amy Schumer and anyone else who achieved that level of fame is on their way back down, they're going to have to apologize. And they're going to have to look at who they were a few years ago and who they pissed off, because when they're looking to try to promote their gig at Side Splitters or their gig at Hilarities or a Funny Stop, you're going to have to be like, hey, look, I know how you fucked me over 5-10 years ago. I don't think so.
full disclosure, and I'm putting it out there just because it's 100% honest, and I get nothing from this. I haven't spoken to this lady in years. Amy Schumer has been nothing but awesome to me. Very cool. When I was on the radio, I would DM her or text her like, "Hey, would you call in?" And she would call in, and she was like kind of blowing up.
Yeah.
So she did, and then she was on I remember this vividly. I went to New York City. I was at the Cellar. I was sitting with Lynn Koplitz and somebody else. Amy was filming Trainwreck at the time, her big blockbuster movie. She was on fire, famous, tabloids. She literally gets up from the Cellar table, walks across the room, comes up and gives me a hug. She's like, "Chad, what are you doing in New York City?" She goes, "It's so good to see you." And she picked up my tab. That's the last I ever spoken to her when she was famous. So when everyone say, we all have our different experiences with different people. I just shit on Bert for like an hour. Amy Schumer has been nothing but sweet to me. So
it's always nice to me. Some people have those stories where they look and say, well, no. See, I've seen people achieve that level. For example, I got to get to know Dustin Diamond at one time.
So did I.
He was nice to me.
It was real nice. And especially when he was trying to find Coke at the Red Fox. I was like,
boy. Yeah, how many times where he's like, "Yeah, hey," and touching the side of his nose.
He's like, where we could score? He just assumed I did Coke. I'm like, yeah, let me check around, and I just left. I'm like, fuck you, Screech.
Yeah, it was time. Yeah, you have to make sure you get your photo with him before, like if you're a fan, and you get your photo before the cocaine, because otherwise his eyes are as large as dinner plates.
Well, what's funny is Pete from the Funny Stop years and years and years ago asked me to middle for him, and I go, fuck yeah, because I've heard nothing but horror stories about this guy. He was an asshole to whoever. I was like, I'm going to bury fucking Screech. Couldn't have been a nicer guy. And he was actually okay on stage. He wasn't bad.
Yeah, and, we talked about when we hung out with Willis. We hung out with
Todd Bridges.
And for somebody like Todd Bridges, who we've talked about it before, but him being on massive television shows when there were 3 networks.
The fucking Waltons.
He was on like 2 of them at the same time.
Fish.
Probably at the exact same time where he's doing different strokes, and then the Waltons are on another channel or whatever. And you realize that this guy achieved so much fame. He took the virginity of Janet Jackson, and
but she told me over a panini sandwich, which was interesting.
Oh yeah, I like how he just named. Boy, you want to talk about name dropping? He's just throwing him and Jimmy Walker again, another guy that at some point. It's gonna come crashing down for if you.
What was the lie? Sorry to interrupt. What was the lie Todd Bridges told us that we knew like right then and there was a fucking lie? We were sitting in the bar.
Oh.
So he saw Richard Pryor with his hair on fire, or Michael Jackson?
Yes, that was it. Yeah, he said because there's the story about Richard Pryor when he was freebasing cocaine and set his hair on fire, and he said that he saw Richard Pryor running down the street with his hair on fire.
And I remember I looked at you going, "This guy's full of shit."
Yeah.
Willis.
It was nice.
I was like, what you talking about, Willis?
But that's somebody who does go on stage, and unlike Jimmy Walker, where you have to pay him good money for him to say dynamite, that Willis, as soon as people ask him what you talk about Willis, and then he goes, "I don't fucking know," and then it breaks up the tension. Then he can be, Todd Bridges comedian on stage. But that's what it is that this fame isn't going to last forever.
No, Todd Bridges gave me his email address because I asked him to do a podcast and he never got back to me. So fuck you, Todd Bridges.
Yeah, he didn't get back to me either. Yeah, I thought about it too.
Fuck you, Todd Bridges. Dana Plato was right about you.
That's right. Even though she's the only one still alive from that show. Even Conrad.
No, she's dead. She's dead.
No, he's the only one.
Oh, yeah. Conrad Bing, Gary Coleman, Dana, they're all dead except Todd Bridges.
Yeah, well,
I think Mrs. Garrett's dead too.
Yeah, Mrs. Garrett just died. Who was the kid? Was it Danny Hooksey?
The redheaded kid?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when Different Strokes jumped the shark when they brought that kid in.
Yeah, I remember Danny Cooksey was on those shows, and then he ended up he was one of those awkward kids where he ended up being like a bratty teenager. He was on the show Salute Your Shorts when back in the early 90s. Remember that show?
How old are you again? I'm just curious.
So, I'm 33. That was actually when I was a kid. Now that one is not like one of those where, I grew up watching this 60s show. No, I watched Salute Your Shorts when I was a kid. It wasn't a good show. Hey Dude and all those terrible Nickelodeon shows. Like,
did you ever watch the Banana Splits?
I did watch them. Yeah.
1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana, 4, 5 banana, 6 banana, 8 banana, more. I don't know how it goes.
Yeah, the Banana Splits.
I used to love them.
Monkeys. They were basically the monkeys with the costumes on.
That's a good analogy. I liked it though as a kid. Here,
are you still pulling up the?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up the fucking. Sorry, so if you're watching a video, my apologies. Yeah. Listen,
but that's what it is. Is that if you're somebody who is rising in the world of comedy, and
there's Conrad Bain right there.
Oh,
that's when Mr. T guest hosted Gary Coleman.
Oh, did you see? Oh, speaking of, did you?
There's Todd Bridges. We hung out with him. Oh, that's when they replaced Mrs. Garrett with this chick.
Yeah, right, I thought that was.
Here's the kid.
That was the lady.
Gary Danny Cooksey.
It is Danny Cooksey. Okay.
Because Gary Coleman wasn't cute anymore, so they had to get rid of. We got to get a cute kid in here.
I forgot Dixie Carter was on the show before she was on Designing Women.
Towards the end, like when Different Strokes, it was the Fonzie jumping the shark when they brought in Dixie.
Oh, so it was like so she was the Ted McGinley.
Ted McGinley is fucking the perfect name drop right there.
Did you see, by the way, if you want to also pull this up, apparently they're rebooting for a one night only special of Different Strokes.
I did see that.
We got to pull this up because I think it's happening this week.
It's I think Kevin Hart's like playing Gary Coleman.
Yes. Why? Could they have found like a little black kid to be Gary Coleman? Because that's what it kind of.
He is a little dude though. I've met him.
Instead of a 50-year-old black man.
He's a very small man. This fucking Kevin Hart. John Lithgow's in it.
Oh yeah, he's the Conrad Bain character.
Yeah, John Lithgow's playing. Oh, that makes sense. That's a good. He's playing Philip Drummond. Damon Wayans is playing Willis.
Why is this supposed to be grown up?
Maybe they're all grown up. Ann Dowd she's playing Mrs. Garrett. Who the fuck that is?
Why couldn't they have just gotten like Blair? Why they just get the rest of the group? I mean, what's Tootie doing?
Kim Fields.
Yeah, what's Kim Fields doing?
What is Kim? Can we get her on the podcast?
Yeah, she's.
I'll talk to fucking Tootie all day long.
What about the girl, Jerry, Blair's cousin?
Oh, Jerry. I called her Jerry the retard growing up, which is not politically correct. Tony, do some plugs. I want to show you something.
Oh, we're almost out of time. We got to wrap up here. We're up against it. But yes, if you want to follow me on Patreon, it's patreon.com/Tony Mazur. $5 a month. You could check out my podcast. I do about 4 to 5 podcasts a week, depending on how I feel, or if I miss this one because I'm too tired and I overslept my alarm. And then every Wednesday for free on iTunes or Google, Spotify. This week's guest is Dave Parker, the Cobra. Former Pittsburgh Pirate. I had
his rookie card. I had it.
Dave Parker, the Cobra, is going to be on my podcast.
Look what's coming in the mail this week to you.
All right.
I'm Kmart Ready, which sold out at the Improv. If you guys want one of these bad boys, and I'm Kmart, it goes with one of my bit. It gets an applause break when I pull this thing out, by the way.
What is the SM? Because obviously it's trademark. What's SM stand for? And I hope it's not ski mask.
Oh, Jesus. I have no idea. But
okay.
If you want one of these, you guys can send me a DM and I will fucking mail it out holiday season and with some Silk City hot sauce. And I'm also mailing you this.
Oh, yes. And I got to send you some Silk City because I got a bunch of Mango Madness.
Yeah, I'll do I'll send like a return envelope and you can just drop it in the mail so you don't have to pay or anything like that.
Oh, that's perfect. That'll cover about maybe 6 beers of mine at the brew wall.
What size?
We have this place that's right by down the street from where I live and where you were at for a little bit, where it's a pour your own beer station.
What size shirt do you want?
Give me an XL.
They sell these fucking, because that joke is so perfect and the pitch is so perfect. They sell out like crazy now. And everyone remembers Kmart. It's almost becoming retro. So people are like, love it.
Yeah. Kmart's starting to become that retro feeling where I talk about the ground round. Where,
yes,
we go the ground round and all those places from the 90s. Because, I was thinking about this. So, we remember the 90s pretty fondly. And
I remember the 90s.
And I remember most of the 90s because they were my prefrontal cortex.
I remember Godfrey on Remember the 90s on VH1.
I'm actually going to a 90s party for New Year's. So my wife ended up getting a pair of Tommy Hilfiger overalls, and she has these light up shoes, and she's going to wear makeup a certain way. And for me, I'm basically wearing Well, except for the captain's hat, basically what I'm wearing now, because I haven't changed my hairstyle from the 90s, and I haven't changed anything from the 90s. But I'll say this. At what point are we going to be nostalgic for the 2000s? That where the way a lot of our generation kind of pines for the 80s and 90s is the 2000s and the 2010s, the aughts and the 2010s. Is that going to be like, oh boy, I remember my youth of 2007. I loved, that was when I was in high school and this and that.
Oh, we used to listen to Old Town Road by Little Nas X, all the great art and music. It was phenomenal.
Boy, you couldn't go into a club in 2013 and not hear What Does the Fox Say and the Harlem Shake.
Played. Squid Game. I mean,
Thrift Shop by Macklemore.
I mean, we all the art. Pete Davidson. I mean, there's so much substance. Machine Gun Kelly. I mean, there's so much substance going on in the 2000s.
There's so much shit out there right now that
Bert Kreischer.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, man, remember we saw that comic on stage telling that machine joke? Oh, boy, that was such a great experience. We all got drunk, not with Bert, but we all got drunk that night.
Well, listen, I'm up against it.
You are up against it.
I have to. By the way, it was great seeing you doing the live podcast at home. I never got a chance to go to the Trader Joe's where Jeff Blanchard worked, but I wanted to. I just had to get it in there. I couldn't figure it out.
I might one of these times I will have to do a live podcast from that Trader Joe's, because I'm sure they have pretty good Wi-Fi, and then I can do it on my phone and see if we could have Jeff Blanchard stop by and
we'll Barry Ribs that bitch.
You would do a guest appearance. Yeah, exactly. Have Barry Ribs stop by.
By the way, I know Tony plugged his Patreon. Sign up for mine, guys. Literally $3. It's the holiday season. It's the season of giving. It's my birthday, the 27th. Also, you're not going to want to miss this Wednesday's football podcast guest. It's going to put Twitter into no one's going to even know what the fuck to think. So go sign up to that Patreon. Trust me, you're going to want to sign up.
Who's the guest? Is it Ben Axelrod?
Oh shit, we forgot about that. I wanted to talk. Yeah, that guy. So that guy's such a nothing that it's not even worth talking about.
It's those random verified people from like TV stations in town that just because they have a blue check mark that they think they have some kind of clout. That's the problem, is that
if I saw that dude in person, he'd fucking run away like a bitch.
Really would. Well, yeah, exactly. That's what they all do with me. Whenever I'm around, people like to talk shit about me on social media, and then when I'm actually face to face with them, and they're like, "Wow, that Tony is actually kind of a nice guy," and he's just kind of a dick on Twitter. It's like, yeah, that's because Twitter is not real life.
Asshole. Were you mad when I was going after him when I saw that you tweeted that?
No, I loved it. That's why I posted it, because he unfollowed me. Here's what he does:
but you didn't. You didn't have him tagged, so he actually searched you out, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because he unfollowed me a couple of years ago. I don't know. It was probably from saying that I didn't think January 6th was a big deal, or all that kind of stuff. And he unfollowed me. But whenever anyone is critical of me on Twitter, whether it's Mike Polk or Anthony Lima or somebody, that he always favorites it.
He do the same with me. He was doing the same with me.
It's a real cunty thing where it's
very cunty.
But you don't. You're favoring criticism of me, but you're not going to at me when it comes to that. So I said, well, then, two can play at this game. He posted a thing the other day about how it's not fair that Ohio State had to play at Michigan the other day because of that it should have been at Ohio State. And
someone's trying to get retweets.
So I just screenshotted it and I just put which is the sound of the normies getting really angry about certain things. And yeah, unless somebody said, "Hey, Tony's talking shit about you," and didn't tag you, or he's actually still following me in certain ways, he just doesn't truly follow me on social media. And you notice I didn't respond to him at all. Like he was trying to come back a little bit. I don't give a fuck about those people.
I have like nothing to lose at all, especially with all those cunts. So I love torturing them because I know how thin-skinned they really are and how much followers they really are. So I love going back at them because they don't know what the fuck to do with me. Because I speak I don't give a fuck. What's his name? Exactly. Ben Axelrod?
Yeah, Ben Axelrod, who was he got his fame of writing for the student newspaper down at Ohio State and parlayed that into, I think, a part-time radio job, and now he's a digital producer at a local NBC affiliate that also employs Mike Polk. So they make a lot of good decisions over there.
They think outside the box. I'm trying to pull him up. I want to give him a plug because I want all the people to go tweet at him. can't
He's
find
having
it.
a second kid. So God bless.
Oh, okay. He's I don't want to fuck with his family.
No, just fuck with him because
on Twitter.
Yeah.
Because he's a cunt. Let me find him.
You could be a cunt and a good father. I've seen that. Trust me. My dad was a cop.
Hey, come on.
Hey, now.
I'm trying to find this Ben Axelrod here. Oh, here we go.
Did he block you?
I think I blocked him at one point. I don't know. Because he's just doing like cunty things. Oh, he was part of the Cleveland Pylon at one point, of course. Hack. Where did he go?
Oh, yeah, he's probably in the comments or something. Or he might have deleted his tweets, actually.
Yeah, it looks like they're deleted.
Yeah, if we're being real, this year's OSU.
Look at Sark liked it.
Yeah, of course. Yes, Sark's all about that life.
He likes talking. He likes the shit.
For being real, this year's OSU Michigan game should have been played in Columbus. Not saying we should reverse the result, but an asterisk is probably in order. But I did respond. I think it's in the thread. I said, "Yeah."
Oh, here he is.
It's just like if you want to put an asterisk next to anything, yeah, that's
Dude, he looks like a fucking tool.
I like the kid and play haircut.
So he thinks he's like a big time dude.
Yeah, because he's got a blue check mark next to his name, and that he wrote a book that no one read.
Like no one knows you. This is
oh no, it's Stu Gotts from the friggin' Liebetard show. This right now is the most exposure you're getting from this podcast. Is nobody fucking knows you. And you know, and he's I'm not gonna give him any more plugs. So he quotes, he's a journalist, I believe. Who's this? John. Who the fuck is this? That's the guy from Liebetard show. Yeah. All right, fuck that guy. Enough Ben Axelrod. Well, because when you're a digital producer, and it was, by the way, it was funny when he was up in 2 years ago, the last time I was covering the Browns, and he and another guy who was a nice guy at Channel 3, that they would do at halftime Browns reports. So they would set up a live thing on Facebook, and they would get about 4 people watching them. And they'd be like, "Hi, this is Ben Axelrod, and hi, I'm Matt Florjancic, and we're here. It's halftime. The Browns are losing 16-10, and wanted to get your thoughts here in the comments of people that are like, no one's watching this. Why are you doing this?" And they're always, for some reason, having the Miz on for some reason, because the Miz is coming through with Monday Night Raw. Mm-hmm. So the Miz is like their big guest. Speaking of content, you guys, you are welcome. You just got fucking served a nice episode of Mondays with Mazur, including, we just started talking about that cat like Joe List and Mark Norman talks about their cats. I saw Joe List is coming to town. He's very funny. Is he I like gay? Joe. No, he's married. Okay, I was just making sure. I thought I saw somebody reference. He just looks weird. Okay, I was wondering because I know about the cats and everything. I didn't know. No, he's not Joe gay. List, if you're listening, no, he's not listening. I don't know much about him. Nice guy. Like him. All right, guys, leave a 5-star review on the iTunes. Sign up to both respected Patreons. Mondays with Mazur, every single Monday, behind the paywall. We gave you this one for free. You're welcome. Good night. Yeah.